was long. On arrival at hospital, it was reported that Navalny received a preliminary diagnosis of acute psychodyspeptic poisoning. He was put on a ventilator, placed into a medically induced coma, and administered atropine. His condition was described as serious but stable. Normal medical processes were taking their course. But then things took an odd turn. The hospital began to fill with law enforcement personnel, some in plain clothes, and they started confiscating Navalny's personal belongings, Yarmish said. When the plane Navalny had been on finally reached Moscow, law enforcement officials were waiting to board the aircraft. They instructed passengers who had been sitting closest to Navalny to stay put, while others disembarked. This struck one passenger as puzzling. At that point, the case did not look criminal, and yet security officials clearly thought the incident to be criminal all the same. Back in Omsk, Navalny's wife, Yulia, faced difficulties in getting to her husband, because, the hospital authorities said, he had not explicitly consented to her visit. And doctors became less forthcoming about Navalny's condition with his team, who wanted to move him to Germany for treatment. On the 21st of August, that is, a day after Navalny was hospitalized, a plane ready to transport him to Berlin's Charité Hospital landed in Omsk. A strange incident was also reported by Ivan Zhdanov, a close associate of Navalny, and Yulia Navalnaya. They claimed that, during a conversation with the head of the hospital, a policewoman said that a substance dangerous both to Navalny and others around him had been found. But she declined to name it, as it was an investigative secret. On the same day, a national Russian newspaper published a sensational story. Citing anonymous sources, it claimed that law enforcement personnel had been trailing Navalny in Tomsk. Had he been poisoned? The sources reported that no unnecessary or suspicious contact that could be linked with poisoning had been seen. The story was widely interpreted to be a controlled leak from Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB, to distance itself from the incident. Meanwhile, doctors in Omsk revised their initial diagnosis. They now said that Navalny was experiencing the effects of a serious metabolic disorder, not the effects of poisoning. The hospital's chief physician said this may have been caused by a sharp drop in blood sugar in the plane, which led to the loss of consciousness. Doctors also now said that the substance found in samples from Navalny's hands and hair was a common industrial component and could have come from a plastic cup. And yet, they now thought that Navalny's condition was unstable and it would be inappropriate to fly him to Germany. Navalny's personal doctor saw a clear motive. They are waiting 3 days so that there are no traces of poison left in the body. Yulia Navalnaya appealed directly to Vladimir Putin for permission to fly her husband abroad. After facing initial resistance, German medics were allowed access to Navalny and said he was in a suitable state to be flown to Berlin. And Russian doctors gave their consent too, saying that his condition had stabilized. The plane took off from Omsk with Navalny on the 22nd of August. 2 days after arriving in Berlin, German doctors said that they believed Navalny had been poisoned with a cholinesterase inhibitor, a substance that interferes with the nervous system. The source could have been an everyday pesticide or a weapons-grade nerve agent. This news, therefore, increased suspicions relating to the Russian state. But Russian officials pushed back against the increasing number of fingers pointing at them. Why would we do it? And in such a clumsy, inconclusive way? So tweeted one of Russia's top diplomats at the UN on the 24th of August. In early September, the speaker